Today, you're going to learn how to select the right gardening tools as well as clean and sharpen them for maximum use. I hope you enjoy this lesson. Hi, my name is Charles Malki, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants, and today we have the honor of being here with my friend Judy Frankel of judyshomegrown.com, and she is a fruit tree expert and master gardener here in the Ranchos Palos Verdes area and surrounding beach cities here in the county of Los Angeles. And it's a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much, Charles.
Can you tell us a little bit more about you and what you do for all the fruit trees surrounding our communities?
Well, I've been pruning fruit trees for 20 years, and I prune, train, and fertilize fruit trees, vineyards, and roses for my clients here in the South Bay. And today we're going to cover which tools are my favorite, which ones I'm recommending, and why.
Look at it. So I see you've got an assortment of tools. The worst looking tools are mine because I leave them outside to rust. And but fortunately, we're going to talk a little bit about cleaning too at some point. So maybe that's something I'll be taking home, or maybe we'll together be cleaning some of my tools.
Okay, that'd be great. So my favorite tool is this Felco number 8, but for people with smaller hands, maybe you want a number 6. So I have very big hands, and this is a bypass pruner. That means that the blade passes, the blades pass each other. The other type of pruner is an anvil pruner, and I'm not really crazy about this because they have to be super sharp or else they'll crush the stem.
And I just told you that this is actually one of my least favorite tools, just as you said as well. And he said it's called a bypass pruner when one of the blades passes the lower blade, as it does in this example.
Right.
So the blade passes the lower blade. In this one, all they do is touch one another. And that's the weakness about this, is it kind of just squeezes on the branch you're trying to prune.
Yeah, actually this side is just a soft side, otherwise it would crush it even more. But these have to be super sharp in order to work. And also, this is a ratchet anvil pruner, which means it'll eventually get through the stem way better than a typical, without the ratchet.
Okay.
But I also like some of these smaller ones if you're taking fruit off the tree, because as you'll learn in other videos that we're doing about citrus, that it's better to take the fruit off with a pruner. So you've got these little ones for harvesting all the way up to this size, and they're wonderful pruners as well. They're also bypass pruners.
Cool.
And then the next thing that I need is my Lopper. So this is my favorite Lopper. It's made by Fiskars. It's a 25-inch. And when you get some of the longer Loppers, it's harder to get in amongst the branches. Plus, this has a smooth handle, because some of the handle caps have like a little cap bump, and you can't get into the tree as easily. The other thing about this is it has a power gear, and so it's really tough on the branch. It'll go through the branch really easily with that extra feature on it.
So I know you're about 30% of your way into this so far, but I just want to distinguish, and for those people watching, between your initial favorite tool and this other favorite tool. When would you use one over the other? And now you're picking up a third tool. Like which one do I want to go for as, let's say, a beginning gardener, beginning first tool? Which one do I want?
Okay, so this one is just for thicker branches. You can go up to probably 3/4 of an inch with this, but you have to really have strong hands to get through something that big, unless it's like a fig or an avocado. Those are super soft woods, whereas like citrus is a very hard wood, which is why even this might not cut it. Literally, you have to then go up to a ratchet pruner. So if it's easy to cut through or semi-hard, this is the tool. And if it's thick but it's really super hard, then the ratchet pruner can get through those really difficult pieces.
Got it. Very nice.
And that's made by Florian, by the way. My next favorite tool is actually this one. It's a reciprocating saw. some people call it a skill saw, but it doesn't have to be this brand. It's really easy to get into tight spaces, and it goes through a very large branch. I mean, you can even get it through a trunk, but you'll be there for a long time, and you're like sawing back and forth. You have to move. Yeah, you have to move this, and sometimes I angle it on the tree. So maybe we'll do a demonstration of that. And the other thing is, you only want to buy the 9-inch wood blades, because they have to cut through wood. So this is the kind of blade you'll be getting.
Compared to, I know that these are also available to cut metal. So we're distinguishing the metal blades from the wood blades.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. And then if you don't want to carry around a power saw, which by the way, you can either have a battery power or this is a plug-in, and I prefer the plug-in because the batteries they're not very good. They don't hold their charge long enough. And there's nothing worse than being out in the middle of an orchard and all of a sudden your power is gone out. So, okay, and then for not having any power, this is a great tool. It's a wood saw, so when you push or pull, whether you're pushing, pulling, it's still cutting. And this actually is way easier to work than it may look, but it still takes more energy on your part than just carrying this tool and gently gliding it back and forth. This, if you were working all day, this would tire you out. But if you have a small job or you can't get this tool into the space, this is the right tool.
But it would also make you super strong if you can do your 8-hour job using that tool.
Right.
Or this is one of mine.
And then this is Charles's tool. There's so many tools for cutting wood, but as you can see, this blade is going to be easier. It's going to fit into more tight spaces than this tool.
It has a curvature that kind of wraps around the trunk or the branch that you're trying to prune compared to having a straight angle.
So, and then we have other loppers here that are pruners that I don't recommend. You know, if you're going at it for a serious pruning gig, you're not going to need this. And by the way, this is the caps I was telling you about. They're going to sometimes end up being harder to move in and out of the tree.
Got it.
The other thing is I almost never use head shears for, well, I wouldn't use it on a tree, and I even wouldn't use it on rose bushes because they don't make precision cuts. They're not clean cuts. You'll end up with a lot of ragged edges, even if the tool is sharp, because you're not cutting it at a perfect angle. You're cutting massive quantity at the same time. It's not going to make a clean cut. And then this tool I bought because I'm a rose pruner, and it gets you into places like if it's a climbing rose and you want to grab it, you actually can cut and grab at the same time because it has this little rubber piece here that will grab onto the cut end of the rose, and you can then pull the rose cane out.
That's fantastic.
But I have to say, I hardly ever use it. That's why it looks so brand new, because it is so much easier to get the results you want by putting the blade right where you want it cut. This one, you're like far away from that.
Yeah, it's 4 feet from your face.
Yeah, it's really hard to reach and precision cut at the same time.
But your hands are safe. You're nowhere near getting into that middle of the rose bush if you had to get in there.
So I use it maybe twice a year, and even then it's for these rare cases where I don't use this very often, mostly on rose bushes, but even on trees I don't use it very often because I feel like once you're in the tree and you're pruning it, you don't want to reach for this. You've already got something that's more immediate. This is quicker.
Makes sense.
So, all right, and then I want to talk about these other power tools. So these are all electric, and the reason is I don't want to run out of battery in the middle of a job, but I also don't want to use gasoline because I can't stand the smell, to be quite honest with you. So I bought this kind of trick. I like it. Black & Decker. It's called a BEHT 100, and it's 16 inches long, very lightweight. So this is for hedge trimming, and I actually will use it on, well, I'll use it on citrus with one caveat, and that is only if the citrus tree is one that I don't really care about very much about, because I have a friend who he's got tons and tons of citrus trees, and he loves this tool. He just goes and he basically gives them all this military style cut right
so he's
across
making
the
like
top.
a perfect smooth hedge.
Yeah, and he doesn't care about fruit. He doesn't care about all that because he knows the tree's going to fill out and produce lots of leaves anyway. This is citrus.
So the equivalent of this tool would be this over here as well.
Right.
Using your shears, where again, if the goal is to have a completely smooth looking tree, as you would like an ornamental hedge, a ficus tree, for example, or a ficus hedge, you would be using tools such as this or this.
Right.
And as you said, the caveat being, and if you're putting on your citrus, is don't expect much fruit. And I know we're going to do a couple of demonstrations later, but if you're looking to create a perfect hedge, you are not creating a perfect environment within that tree for supporting flowers and ultimately fruit, and you're taking away from yields that way.
So the other thing is that this doesn't make clean cuts. It'll shred the end of the branch. So I'm not fond of it, but I have used it in bougainvillea and trying to just clean up a hedge. So this tool I don't use on trees. But having said that, this is an electric chainsaw, and I don't like this either. I don't use it hardly as much as the skill saw because it's actually slower. It cuts slower than the skill saw.
Oh, interesting.
And it doesn't get into the tight spaces. So I end up hardly ever using this, but I bring it just in case I have a big old branch or not branch, but trunk that I want to get through.
Okay.
And so it's just good to have extra power, extra tools.
But it's good to know. So the skill saw is your preferred tool over the chainsaw.
Yeah, 99% of the time.
That looks so much more powerful and that you can get so much more done, but you're saying this is the better way to do it.
And it makes a cleaner cut,
yeah, I'm
believe
sure
it or
it does.
not.
I agree.
Yeah.
So here we are now in another corner of Judy's garden, and she's got a couple more tools she wants to share with us.
So this is a long-handled pruner, and I hardly ever use this as well because if the tree is that tall that I'm having to reach up here, how hard do you think it would be to take the fruit down? So, but sometimes when I get to a tree and it's never been pruned properly and the crotch of the tree's already up here, the only way we can deal with it is to start pruning up here. And what I do is I just put it against, I have to put it angled against the branch, and then I pull, and this not only does it cut it, but it also grabs it at the same time, theoretically. But these are notoriously crummy tools. So I use this as little as I possibly can. But the other tool behind me is probably the most important one if you're really serious about doing pruning of fruit trees, and that is, this is a true pruning ladder. And that means it's really got just the pole and the steps. And that way you can feed the pole into the tree and get as close as you want, or as close as you can.
And what's the name of this product again?
It's just a pruning ladder.
Called a pruning ladder.
Right, and this is an 8-foot, so I can do most of my work on this ladder. I barely ever need to climb into the tree, except for the tree we're gonna film later.
Okay.
So anyway, this ladder is about $170. I don't even know where you get them, to tell you the truth.
No, but people will search and Google those
They'll
keywords.
find
So pruning ladder, and we'll find it. You said ballpark $170.
Yeah.
It's good to know. Something I want to share with these larger tools that are, to reach branches that are out of your way, and specifically your specialty is fruit trees. And you and I both know that fruit trees, most of fruit, as I'm looking at most of the fruit trees in your property, are all within reach. You've kept everything to a manageable height, so a pole pruner probably never gets used on your property.
Right.
And nor does this pruning ladder. This is like for other gardens, throughout the community where they've just allowed their trees to grow to 30 to 40 feet. And you mentioned the crotch of the tree. And for the people watching and have continuously watched our videos, I usually call it the heart of the tree, being the tree trunk, and the primary branches coming off the tree trunk should be low enough and manageable enough so that when it goes to flowering and fruiting from year after year, it's all within reach is the goal.
Right.
And I know it's another thing that both of our friend Tom Spellman talks about with backyard orchard culture, being to keep your fruits within reach of just for easier harvest than trying to have to rely on pole prickers and fruit pickers and ladders to get to, fruit that's out of reach.
And there's one more tool that I cannot overlook because I use them constantly, and that is my gloves. I'm always wearing gloves. I know a lot of people like to touch the soil and so forth, but for me, it's mostly about preservation of soft skin. Yeah.
Totally get it. So now that you've shared the variety of tools that you use on most of your projects, let's get to cleaning them, right?
Right.
Well, let's get going.
Okay.
Okay, so here we are now in Judy's kitchen, and I know when it comes to cleaning tools, most of the pros that I'll run into are usually running out with gallons of bleach or doing concentrations of bleach and water. What are we going to do here today?
So I compare bleach to alcohol to just good old soap and water. And soap and water is my preferred because it kills most of the pathogens and it doesn't corrode the blades like bleach does.
That's a good point.
So, and some people say soak it in 10% bleach solution for 2 minutes, and some people say 30 minutes. And I'm like, I don't have that kind of time. I'd rather just wash them and get it over with.
But the damage to your equipment, I mean, that's a big deal. I know that bleach on metal is not a good thing.
Right. So what I'm going to do is just take the Felco spring out. And by the way, when you store your Felcos, always have them open. Don't store them closed with the lock. So that keeps the spring nice and healthy. All right, so we take the spring off, and then we're just going to use the scrubbing, any kind of scrubbing thing with just a little bit of dish soap, and simple as that. But like, if that's not making it come off, if that's not good enough, I have this other, I don't even know what to call it. I got it at Smith & Hawken, but Smith & Hawken has disappeared now, and unfortunately, I don't know where to get it. If any of you guys can find one of these special, almost like rubbery devices that's a pad, put it in the comments, because I have been looking online and I can't find it.
Does it break down, or is it a bar of soap, or what is it?
So it's not soap. You can get it wet, or you can even use it dry. But the idea is just to rub off that sticky substance that turns black. And this works better, I think, than anything else.
Better than this?
Even better than that.
Interesting.
Because it has a certain grit to it, in addition to, but it does wear, like, you can see how the edges have rounded. That's because I've used it in those places.
So for anybody that knows what this product is, please write it in the comments so that hopefully we can share it with other viewers, because it's Judy's favorite.
Yeah, and if I had a tool company, this is one of those things I would offer people, and they would only be able to get it from me.
And for cleaning your tools, how often are you doing this? Is this like between every single tree, before you start a project, like after you finish a project? When are you doing this?
So I do it between projects, so pretty much every time I go out to a client's house, because if you don't, you're taking the diseases from the last client. And the other thing is, if you're in the middle of a job and you want to clean the tools, then you can go to like a spray bottle with alcohol in it, or you can use those wipes, the wipes that come out of the container one at a time, and you can wash in between.
Those wipes being like those Clorox or bleach wipes.
Exactly,
okay.
Exactly. But there's nothing better than getting the tools clean, especially if you're going to want to sharpen it next, and that's really important. But I do want to show you some other products. Okay, so this product is good for cleaning, lubricating, and protecting, but on the other hand, it's expensive. If you keep using this as opposed to this, you'll have to keep buying bottles and bottles. So I would recommend trying to always just go with your scrubby first, and if you can find something that's kind of like this, or a more aggressive, more like stainless steel.
I was thinking a stainless steel scrub.
Sponge.
But that's also hard on your hands too. It's hard to handle stainless steel. You got to put your gloves back on.
And then if you have rust, if things are really bad, then you want to use a wire brush. So this is the best way to you shouldn't leave your tools outside, but if you do, and a lot of people do,
I know you're talking about
this
me.
this is the way to bring it back to life, is to wire brush it. Well,
That'll be our project this week.
wire brush gets through all the stuff that this won't work on, or that this won't do.
Look how shiny it's getting.
It's already getting shiny. So I know when people feel like, oh, there's no way I can ever get that tool back again, this is the ticket. You have to have a real stiff wire brush. And then if you, once your tools are pretty in good shape, you don't ever have to go back to this, because you shouldn't ideally ever get rusty anyway. So it's going back to just make sure you have your scrubby, your favorite scrubby that you only use on your tools. And by the way, I do run my tools underwater, but that's only if I know I have time to then lubricate them, because of course water is going to ruin them.
It's going to get it back to rusted again.
So I have some towels that are specifically for my tools to dry them off in between washing and sharpening.
Perfect.
Which is what we're going to do next.
So Judy's also got a helpful tip when it comes to loppers. What's that?
Well, if you stand in between the handles, you'll never cut yourself while you're washing, because that's as far as it goes.
And it's pointed away from you.
Right.
That's great. Well, let's get on now to sharpening tools. So Judy's now going to show us how to sharpen our tools.
Okay, so if you have a really pitted or gouged out blade, you need to start with a belt sander. And I don't have a belt sander. I just want you to know, if your blade is in really bad shape, you're going to have to at least find a belt sander first and let someone else who knows how to sharpen tools do that. Okay, but let's say you have a tool and you haven't gouged the blade out. Then this is what someone at California Rare Fruit taught me, is you take and you only want to sharpen one side of the blade. Do not sharpen the flat side, only sharpen the rounded side, okay? And then you hold it so that the blade is not going to close on you. Now I don't have the spring in there, keep it open. I have to open it with my hand. And then there's two different grits I recommend. You should definitely have 1000 grit. And what I do is I take a popsicle stick, and I just use Elmer's glue and glue it onto the back of a popsicle stick, and then I just cut around it. And this is a very inexpensive way to make a very fast way of sharpening your tools.
So when I first saw that, I was thinking it was a nail file. I didn't realize that you made it, and you pretty much, it looks like one side is this color, which means it's the 220 grit, and the other side is the black 1000 grit.
Well, actually, I did the 220 grit on a separate
stick.
So you could put one on one side and one on the other. That's way more advanced. But 220 grit, if your blade's really dull, you want to get started with that. And the action is from the inside to the outside. You're pulling the file basically across it as you're going toward the outside. Do you see how that works?
Inside to outside.
Okay, now you do the 220 grit for a while and you're like, okay, that's good, but it could be a little sharper. So then you take the 1000 grit and you start really polishing it down. Okay, now this could be all it really needs, especially if you started with your tools pretty okay. So after you've sharpened it, or instead of using these things rather, you can use a Falco 903. It's a diamond encrusted sharpening tool, and one side has a little grittier than the other. The smoother side is what you finish with, and this tool's already pretty sharp, but the same action applies. You're just dragging it across and moving out at the same time.
And what's that name of that tool that you're using?
It's a Falco 903, a pruner sharpener.
Okay.
That's what you look it up under, pruner sharpener. So all blades are the same premise, even the big, loppers. have to have that same, drag it across the blade until it's smooth. And you can see if there's any divots in the blade or any pitting, then you know that you probably need a more serious method than just this.
I see how careful you are putting your thumb against it. I know all my tools are pretty dull. I wouldn't be as hesitant as you. How often do you implement this procedure? I know we talked about cleaning, being between jobs. How often do you sharpen your tools?
So if I had a big job and cutting some really hard wood, I'd sharpen after that job. So people don't realize that my job doesn't start until I've done all my tool cleaning and sharpening. So there's a lot to this job that you don't even see. But the important thing about it is if you're cutting with clean and sharp tools, not only does your client benefit from that, but it's just a much easier cutting job. So after you've sharpened your tools and you feel like, well, you can test them out on a thick magazine or something and actually cut it. And if it's only cutting in this part of the blade but not this part, you got to keep going back until you get the whole blade sharp, except for this last part, which hardly ever gets any cutting done. Most of the cutting is on this part of the blade, which is really important to know. But after you finish the sharpening, you want to use some mineral oil or food grade oil on these loppers or pruners to keep them in good shape, because there's still some water in there. I'm just going to drip it in and let it kind of glide down on its own.
You knew it wasn't going to drip.
Yeah, because I've done this a million times. But I also want to get the gear, so just a tiny little bit. That's all you really need. And some people, move it around mechanically. I let it drop into place just because I know it's going to. So, and what I'll do sometimes is I'll just set the tool up against the wall with something in front of it, of course, so that it just sits there for a while. Now, if you take this and you put it on your counter, it's going to get greasy. So what I do is I end up putting a towel under it in my car because I'm taking it somewhere. And it will sometimes drop off the tool. So you have to be prepared for that. And now is the time to put that spring back in. And the spring also needs to be lubricated sometimes. I mean, it already has lube in it, but God forbid you get this wet, and this is the way to treat it, is you pour it just like on the gear, and you let it run down in. And this one, you might want to wipe it. So, anyway, now is the time we put it back in.
So out of curiosity, the pruners that you're holding right now, about how old are they? How long have you had them?
I've probably had these about 8 or 9 years.
That's mind-boggling. I thought you were going to say 1 and maybe 2. Take a look closely at how brand new those pruners look. And that's 8 or 9 years old.
Well, you can tell that they're, that I've worn it because of the red coming off. But yeah, I take good care of my tools.
That's mind-boggling. And I know for our viewers, and I'm hoping you're benefiting and hopefully implementing a lot of the lessons that we're learning here from Judy and judyshomegrown.com. And I know I've done hundreds of videos on pruning, but never on cleaning and preserving and sharpening to make our tools last from, between lessons. So I'm hoping we can conclude with getting your tools dirty now.
Okay.
And doing a pruning job.
All right.
So let's go into the garden and start using some of the tools that we started. Let's cut. So here we are now next to one of your grafted citrus on your property, and I can see that there's some major burning going on over here on the southwest facing side of the tree, and there's some grafting tape all over it. And in this lesson on pruning, I can see that there's some major pruning that has gone on, as this was once a bigger tree. What did you use to actually top off this tree?
So I wanted to do a bark graft, and the best tool, I think, for getting through something this thick is the skill saw.
Okay.
So this was a nice clean cut with the skill saw, and then I did 2 bark grafts, and neither one of them took.
So we can see the bark graft indicated over here. I can kind of wiggle it, and then the second one right in this position. And again, she used a skill saw, which we at the beginning of the lesson said is one of our favorite tools for pruning larger branches, or in this situation the trunk. And then over here it pushed out all of this sucker growth. And what did you use to kind of top off all of these suckers that you then grafted upon?
So these were a little bit smaller, but I used the bypass pruner for the smaller growth, and then did a cleft graft 3 times of the same mandarin orange, which is a W. Murcott. Wonderful mandarin. But I want to touch on one thing. Before I knew about IV Organics, when I wanted to seal off something, I actually used a toilet plug, the wax from a toilet plug.
So I want to come a little closer and check this out. I wasn't sure.
I want you to know what that is.
That's interesting. So here is some
Wax.
toilet plug wax, which I'm familiar with. You can see it at any of the big box stores. And I thought it was just using tar, because I know there's a lot of tar-based products out there. And then there's also, you can use latex paint is another one that a lot of research says. What we're going to do today to now seal it, and I want to tell you also why not to use wax. And I know there's a lot of people, even for grafting, they'll use grafting wax, they'll use tar-based tree paste products, and they'll even use again, latex paint, or a combination 50% latex paint. And a lot of research out there will say whenever you've got exposed wood, whether it be a prune branch or a rose prune seal or whatever you're using, if you put a latex paint which traps water, or you're using a tar-based product which traps water, unlike your wooden furniture that's dry, your tree and those branches are still living structures behind it, and so it's going to be pushing moisture through those otherwise what appears to be dead surfaces, and that's going to result in that wood rotting and mildewing. And that's the reason a lot of research says better to put nothing and basically allow the elements affecting it. But what Ivory Organics has done is we've got this product which is porous, which I'm going to show you in just a second. It's Armory listed, so it's an organic way instead of using latex paint, which is forbidden in organic orchards, by the way, as well, as it breaks down and contaminates the soil for like 100 years, because paint's designed to last forever. But this here is Armory listed protection against damaging summer sunburn as well as winter sun scald, insects, and rodents, so that we can protect those exposed wood surfaces for use on your roses, fruit nut trees, ornamental trees, and shrubs. And it says over here that it's for use in organic production and healthier than latex paint and tar-based products. And on the back it goes into further details about the fact that the product is porous and creates a healthier plant tissue than these other products that were traditionally used for like 100 years. If you go back far enough, this is really based on more the traditional method, but it's just a longer lasting product than just using, for example, limestone or clay. And what we're going to do today together is we're going to take turns painting, and let's just start off with protecting the tree trunk from, our 14-hour long summer days. And let's do that. And then we're also going to, towards the end, is protect all of these grafting areas to also keep disease and pests from penetrating those wounds.
That's a keeper. Actually, my mom used to say her favorite hair color is your hair color.
So I hope you enjoyed this educational opportunity presented by Judy of judyshomegrown.com. And again, just to recap, she taught us the tools that you could be using in your home pruning projects, how to maintain them with cleaning as well as sharpening. And we also did a demonstration. We showed one of her citrus trees that required significant pruning, one to bring it to size, as well as to create those 3 grafts that we saw on her citrus rootstock. And just wanted to thank you so much for having us out here this afternoon at your home and displaying all of your gardening tools that you use for all of your many projects throughout the Los Angeles areas. And specifically tell us again a little bit about where your clients are and and what you're seeking.
So clients reach me whenever they're trying to grow fruit or vegetables. And if you're just trying to plant a citrus tree, or if you're trying to extend your season and make fruit ripen all throughout the year. That's my specialty.
That's great. So wonderful point I just want to elaborate on. So the goal is to have food pretty much every single month of the year, because we are here in Southern California and it's a perfect climate for having food pretty much every month of the year. And Judy can help you coordinate and select the fruits that will ripen at those right times during the year. And I know Judy mentioned fruits and vegetables, and I am a huge proponent of growing your own food, because there's nothing better, even beats the organic stores, being able to go to your own backyard and pick that food and eat it in the same hour, capitalizing on all that vitamin nutrition that is otherwise dying by the time it makes it to the store days, weeks, and sometimes even months later. So it's a very important thing that if you invest in your garden, Judy's here to help you, have the most successful garden. Something else I want to add on to it is she also does roses. It's not just limited to food. I know you're also very handy in coming up with landscape design that incorporates colors as well.
Actually, 50% of my clients are just roses, believe it or not.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So Judy of Judy's Homegrown, I'm putting her contact down here on the screen where you can go to her website. I'm also going to put the links down in the comments down below. And there's so much information that Judy has on her website and on her YouTube channel. And be sure to also visit her and like and subscribe all of the educational lessons that you'll find there, which also include cooking. I think I've seen you in the kitchen there.
Yeah, I cook and I bake, although that's not the most important part of my business. But I want to make one other note, which is definitely, even if you're already subscribed, click that little bell that says you want notifications, so every time Charles does a new video, you can see it.
My video and her videos once she gets hopefully more active on YouTube. But yeah, that push bell notification is very important to get notification as soon as the lessons are made available to you. As always, thank you so much for having us, and thank you so much, the baker, for giving us one of the most delicious, what was that called?
It was a crostata.
A crostata. And it had
Homemade.
3, 4, how many fruits in there?
There were 4 different fruits, right from the trees into the crostata.
It was amazing. You're probably looking at the pictures of what I got to eat before we got started, and that gave me plenty of energy, and thank you so much for that, and looking forward to the next time we come to Judy's Homegrown. As always, keep growing with Ivory Organics, and wishing you all happy gardening.